everyone. Happy Saturday. I have a guest joining me today, but she's an unusual guest in that she is the only person I will be speaking to who is also on this side of 50. So let me pull this up quickly, and then I'm going to bring Alice to the camera. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning, Dana.
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, well, thank you for the invitation. It's a great thing to do on a Saturday morning, conversation with a friend.
Well, I had to be a little bit careful when I started thinking about inviting people. Many people I knew were 50 or older, and some people I thought, boy, I'm not sure where they are. And the reason that you are on this call is because I think it might have been last Saturday's conversation when it was just me. You were so engaged in the conversation. We were kind of going back and forth a little bit that I thought, well, she's got to be close to me in terms of age, because otherwise, why would she be thinking about all this? So you are not 50, doesn't matter how old you are, but you are not 50. So you get the distinction of being the other person who is contemplating what 50 will be like versus looking at it from the rearview mirror. And I think that gives you a unique perspective in this conversation. So, really, the question I have for you, Alice, and then we'll kind of just talk about some stuff is, are there things that you are thinking about, wondering about as you approach 50 that maybe some of these people can be instrumental in helping answer for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a great question because I'm close enough, where I have we were talking a little earlier of just like I'm the youngest of five siblings in my family, older parents, so I grew up around a fair number of people that were always older than me. Right, they were going to school, they were graduating, they were married, having children, whatever phase of life that was. Right, and my husband is 50 plus now, so we have a lot of friends in that age group. And I'm kind of this person that's it's kind of funny. It's like that fear of missing out, but I'm like, I'm always behind, which is kind of odd when you think of age, right?
Mhm.
So as I get closer, I tend to kind of, observe kind of what's going on with those people. And, for me, I guess, I observe things kind of from the outside or this side looking forward. And so just through your guest conversations, I've loved kind of finding the themes that resonate with me when I think about that tipping point. I'm not sure if I should think about it that way, but so I think that's one thing. What do you think of advice for younger selves and things? But I'd say as you were, kind of cruising to that, that last decade leading up to 50, right? Like, were there any kind of tipping points or things that were kind of aha moments?
Mm.
That you're just like, oh, you kind of hit this phase, or you knew you were headed towards that direction. So that'll be something I'm kind of listening for as you go forward in your conversations.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate that. I think what has been so fascinating to me in thinking about this week, so you are conversation number 7,
Mhm.
is how common the through line of kindness was.
Mhm. Yeah.
Show up and be kind to other people,
Mhm.
be appreciative, be conscientious, those kinds of things. I thought that was really interesting. Um,
Mhm.
and the other thing that I think speaks a little bit to what you just started to touch on is this idea of, well, what did what did your 40s or your late 30s introduce that sort of changed things? So I think
Mhm.
about my friend Os talking about having cancer at 59 and just suddenly realizing, wow, this is a temporary thing that we are
Mhm.
embodying. I better be a little bit more attentive to it. And I think that that becomes truer as we reach this tipping point. I can't even remember now who I was talking with, where we talked about, you have this ascension, and 50 might be a plateau, but 50 might also be a descent, because of course
Mhm.
none of us really knows where we will end. The only thing we really know is that we will end. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
so I have been already, there have been so many beautiful takeaways just from the few conversations that have
Mhm.
happened. I don't know what I was expecting from these conversations, but they have exceeded what I expected, and I had pretty high hopes for them, so that's been really lovely.
That's great. It's like when you go into a movie, right? You try not to set it so high that you're like, I just truly want to enjoy this time. But man, when it just kind of like there's a bar you didn't even know was there,
Yeah.
and things you get so many benefits and goodness beyond that. It's a beautiful time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let me ask you this, because I guess you and I mean, I have a little bit of time. I think I have 40 days left.
Mhm.
Um, what do you think you will do in these last years leading up to 50 that might be a little bit more intentional based on having listened to these conversations? Or
Mhm.
based on the relationships that you have in your life where you are on the baby end of these relationships? How does that change how you maybe operate on a day-to-day basis?
Mhm. Yeah, there's a couple things. As I've kind of been going the last few years, one of the like aha or like well, I'm not sure if it was aha or like, oh goodness, moments was like, when did I become the adult? Right. Was and so when I think about that, the nieces and nephews, and now, some are married, some are having children, they're kind of in that. And I'm like, oh man, like that seems not long ago. And I still have kids at home with me. So I'm still kind of partially in that. But um, this year I would say in particular has been kind of a one of reflection for me. It's a 10-year cancer survivor year for me. And so I've
Wow.
tried to really bring intention into my life in a lot of ways, kind of through that. And so for me, going forward, I'm like, I know I still have things to work on, those things to do. And so, what's the step today? What's the step I'm going to take tomorrow? What's that? That thing I'm going to have fortitude, that kind of really deep courage. If it's something hard I need to work through, but even just the little things, so I don't. I make the best of each day, however many more I get. But I think especially as I'm leading into this, kind of later half of my 40s and kind of coming into my own in a way. I guess that's what I've seen with many of my family and friends. Like they kind of get to this phase in their life, and they just kind of like they have the confidence, or they have the I'm going to do what I'm going to do type of attitude, whatever that might be. And so for me, kind of really being intentional to just do that each day. So.
Yeah. Well, let me put this comment up from my mother. So my mother is also a tail end baby like you are in her
Mhm.
family. So she said, "Hi, Alice. Was everybody just batty about the baby at your house, baby number 5? You seem like you would have been an excellent baby for a family to get." Not sure that you were exactly this articulate as a baby, but yeah,
Hmm.
I do think, because I'm the oldest, that's a very different birth order placement than to be that
Hmm.
kind of tail end baby who maybe nobody was expecting, but who gets
Yeah.
adopted in and very quickly becomes an important member of the family.
Yes. Yeah, I always kind of joked, right? It's kind of like having multiple sets of parents when you have older siblings. But also too for my parents, I always said, oh, you just had me to keep your golden years golden, right? And so we had a little spark, we had a little something going on, and
Yep.
yeah, you kind of get that. Oh, the baby of the family. It's always easier. The parents are more mellow, whatnot. But they had an 8-year span where they could kind of, remember some of those things. So it was very good, though. I loved having the size of family we did, and
Mm,
we had family living nearby. So, some of those things we talk about, going and visiting and just spending time with people. And
yep.
I think it was maybe was it Jim a couple days ago? Say, hey, you Dana, you and I are in this conversation. We're enjoying these moments together, and these moments won't be here again, right? And so
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah, yep.
Yeah,
So
that was a really powerful moment to be
mhm,
here as opposed to thinking about what's coming or what's behind you. Yeah.
yes, yep.
Um, you said something earlier that really struck me, because for much of my life, I felt like I was the young person at the table.
Mhm.
And suddenly I'm looking around and I'm realizing, holy buckets.
Yep.
I'm not only not the young person at the table,
Mhm.
I'm the old person at the table. I'm the one with a decade plus experience under my belt. I'm the one with the 26-year-old child. I'm the
Mhm.
one with all of this lived experience, and
Mhm.
people are looking to me to sometimes share some of that, and I'm
Mhm.
sort of looking behind me saying, "Wait, who do you wanna hear from?" Because I don't feel like I know a whole lot more than I knew 20 years ago, but of course I do, 'cause I've
Mhm.
lived 20 more years. I mean, we all do.
Mhm. Yeah,
But that's a very weird transition to
it
make.
is. Yeah. Well, and I think too, right? We have some of those things. They often say, hey, things that come naturally to you, you don't always realize are your superpowers. They kind of put it in that. But I think sometimes the experiences we have or that lived experience, we don't always recognize the value that might be to others. And so, I've tried to be much more intentional, probably more so through my work because I've been in my organization for a very long time, and so there's just lots of things that I know, or people, or connections, just lots of things. And so, I've really tried to embrace that. Hey, there are things I know, things that'll be valuable, whether that's a story, it's a resource, whatever it is. And so, I've tried to recognize that in my own life. And I think, kind of a mother of a teenager, almost two teenagers, I try and kind of moderate. Don't let the advice monster come out too much, but there are things to share that they can take with and do what they will. But yeah, absolutely, it's an interesting place. I kind of think of it as the sandwich generation, right?
Yes.
We're kind of we may have our parents, we may not. We may have children, or may not, but like we're kind of in this middle of the sea, if you will. So.
Mhm. Yeah, really, really fascinating place to be in life,
Mhm.
because it's so transitional in so many ways. You're absolutely
Mhm.
right. And in some ways, it's like you kind of can't see either shore before or back or forward.
Yeah.
Um, but you also know that it's possible there's a lot of ocean behind you more than I
Mhm.
don't know. It's a very reflective time. I feel really lucky to get to be having these conversations, if
Mhm.
only that for 50 days I will be listening intently to other people talk about
Yeah.
their reflections and their observations of having lived this part and looking forward to that part. So it's
Mhm.
really interesting. I really appreciate you watching as someone who's not even 50, but as someone who is clearly uh, got some intention around how you're living your own life. And quite
Mhm.
frankly, wouldn't that be great if we all did? You don't need to turn 50 to decide to be intentional.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Because there's just certain things, right? I was talking with a friend earlier in the week, and we were just talking about those things, right? I said, "Hey, I'm doing this conversation with Dana, and here's kind of the topic." And they're like, "Man, that well," so we kind of nailed it down to, there's a few things, right, that have kind of seen us through where we're at. And this person was, on the other side of 50. They're like, "Yeah, that kind of those things that see us through, right? Community and that connection and resiliency, right? We would love sunshine and rainbows most of the time, but we know we get blizzards and rainstorms too, right? So how do
Yeah.
we kind of maintain and build those skills and help each other, right, through those different phases of life or seasons, whatever that might be? So.
Well, this has been a lovely conversation and an incredible way to wrap up week one, Alice. So thanks for not being offended when I asked you if you were 50 yet. And thanks for joining me.
Yeah, well, it was wonderful. This is a great project. I look forward to. I've enjoyed the first week, and I look forward to the days to come and the conversations you're going to have. And kind of as you lead up, wishing you a happy birthday. I think it's a great way to celebrate. I usually do birthday weeks or kind of stretch it out as long as I can. So I love this 50-day celebration that you
I,
have.
I do feel like 50 is about as long as you can expect anyone to hang with you for a birthday celebration, but I appreciate it.
Yes.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your weekend, Alice. Thanks so much for joining me, and everyone else. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
Bye, all.